Today we have Jared. Jared's been a member of the Hackerspace for a really long time, like
4 to 5 years now.
4 to 5 years now. Super excited to hear your class on Sysprep. This is a topic that I wanted to learn more about, and so I begged him to teach it, and here he is.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jared.
Thank you. So thanks to everyone for coming. I am known as the Fed. You can find me on Twitter as such. I'm at the Fed at infosec.exchange, or you can email me, thefed@gmail.com. I have a degree in network engineering. I've never actually used it. Instead, I've been a sysadmin for all of my IT career. I have about 10 years as Windows sysadmin experience, a couple years as a Linux sysadmin, and to try to keep up on the Linux skills, I run a home lab and I do some other electronics hobbies on the side. So, who here has used Sysprep in the past?
3 weeks ago.
Okay.
6 years ago.
Okay. So, Sysprep is actually a very small portion of Windows when it comes to getting an image built and then ready to deploy to multiple machines. It stands for System Preparation, and basically what it does is when you get an image ready to push to other machines, it'll go through, it'll uninstall but not remove any drivers that you've put on the machine. It'll clear the UUIDs on it, and it'll basically get it ready so this image, when it's put on any machine, will install like Windows. And so then it'll install whatever other drivers the machine needs, but it'll still have your image customizations. There's a lot more to Windows imaging than just Sysprep, so we might get into that a little bit today. So when you boot up a machine after you've installed Windows, this one is still running right now. When you first turn it on after you've gone through and installed Windows off of a DVD like this and it reboots, it'll come up with what's called the UBI, or the out-of-the-box experience. The way that the UBI works is it'll come up, it says, thanks for installing, you need to accept the EULA, we need to create your account. If you're running Windows 10 Home instead of Pro, it'll force you to log into a Microsoft account.
Unless you're offline.
They've changed that.
Unless you use Rufus to build your image.
Or there's, if you open a command prompt, there's a command you can type in that'll then reboot the machine and skip that. But, so the UBI is like what you would expect a customer to have. If you buy a laptop for the first time, you open it up, turn it on, that's the thing that it boots into. If you're going to be installing Windows on a bunch of machines and you want to create an image, you can actually bypass UBI mode by going into audit mode. And then when you're done in audit mode, installing your stuff, doing any configurations you want, you'll then use Sysprep to do what's called a generalized pass, which rips out all of the hardware-specific stuff. It'll power off the machine, and then once the machine's off, you'll then take a disk image of it and then push to other machines. When you turn those other machines on, they'll boot up back in the UBI mode. Your customizations will be in the background, but it'll still prompt the user to go through and do all of the things to install. To enter audit mode, you'll do Control-Shift-F3 when you're at the UBI. So this one is almost at the UBI. So once it gets there, I'll just show you how to get into audit mode. So what I've done is I've actually created another machine that I use as just kind of a chew toy when I'm working on random projects. Is this template where I've gone through, I've done audit mode on it, I've installed Windows updates, I've uninstalled a bunch of the other Windows apps I don't use, and then I have that sealed up again. So I'll just clone that as a new machine, spin it up, and I have a fresh Windows install for whatever shenanigans I want to do on it. So we need to wait for this to finish coming up.
Do you have additional programs installed on that image that you have?
Chrome, but that's about it for right now. I don't use it a ton, but it's nice to just have a blank image for if I need to play with some software. So once you're in audit mode, this is when you make your changes. So you can install drivers, you can install different programs you want in the base image. You can even do some stuff with user accounts and other settings on that. This install seemed to run a little faster earlier, but it should be about done.
10 years later.
While we're waiting, I'll share why I've used them in the past.
Okay.
So a lot of times, I'll have audits that I have to have certain pieces of software, certain configurations pre-set up on the machine before it's allowed onto the network. And so I'll create mine with all of those settings already in place, and that way as I spin up machines, they're already ready to go on the network and already pass all the tests.
Oh, and as a disclaimer, what I'm doing tonight is very basic Windows imaging and deployment. It's not going to be any of the advanced stuff. We're not going to do anything with DISM or any of that. That's a whole nother class. That's several more hours worth of work.
What's DISM?
DISM is it's a Windows disk imaging service. Basically, you can do Windows image manipulation configuration. If you want to do a fully Windows-centric network boot to install Windows, you'll set up WDS, which then uses image you've created through DISM or captured through DISM.
So you can have your gold image.
But
Okay.
yeah, it's great for doing gold images if you do the whole, like if you do the Microsoft or the Windows deployment toolkit, if you use SCCM, that type of thing. So unless you're doing a ton of computers, that can be overkill, especially if you're like only going to do 5 or 6. You can just build an image, push it through Clonezilla or through a Clonezilla on the network, and then you don't need to spin up all of that other infrastructure to do the other stuff.
And it does speed up the process, right? So like, just a regular, booting from a DVD or an ISO, it can take quite a while.
Yeah, and so in this case, when I started the install as well, but like as we started the class, I had to go through, I had to hit next, next, next on everything. I had to set up the hard drive and the partitioning on it. And so it's, when you install Windows, just by default, it's a lot of work. So once you're here though, this is the UBI, so you can do the Control-Shift-F3. It'll reboot the machine. As it reboots the machine, it'll log in as the local admin account. It then instantly disables that account, so if you accidentally lock the machine or if the screensaver kicks in, you're screwed. You have to reboot to log in again. But that's how you get into audit mode, and then you can start doing your changes in there. So when you've opened up audit mode and you're going to start doing things on it, do not touch the Microsoft Store. Seriously, don't touch it. You'll be in a world of pain. Sysprep will fail, and you'll basically have to start all over with a brand new image.
So you can't like Sysprep WSL or something because that
No.
uses the Microsoft Store?
If you use the Microsoft Store, no. You can sideload these apps onto it, and it'll work that way, but you cannot use the Microsoft Store itself.
Okay.
And so to sideload apps, there's PowerShell commands you run. You download the package file, and then you just run a PowerShell command.
And even uninstalling some of those apps, like, Xbox, whatever, sometimes it will just redo itself anyway.
Sometimes it will, yes. Yeah, but there are ways to get around that. I'm not going to talk about them a lot in tonight's class, but it's something called, I think it's like AppX provisioning, and you can set to, different apps to provision or not be provisioned per user. So this machine's rebooted after we did the Control-Shift-F3. We are now in what's called audit mode. So audit mode is running. We also have the Sysprep GUI up, which is a very, very simple one. You basically have 2 options in here. You can enter audit mode, or you can enter the UBI after a reboot. You can choose to generalize or not, and then you can tell the computer to quit, reboot, or shut down. So in this case, you just ignore the tool for now. You can cancel out of there. You'll make your changes in here as needed. If you wanted to have Chrome on your image you deploy to everyone, now is when you'd install it. Any other utilities you want to put in, any configurations you'd like to set, you can do some here. Others you have to do elsewhere. But once you do that, you'll run that sysprep command again. If you reboot the computer, it'll bring it back up, or you can run the sysprep command prompt from the command prompt and have it do the same thing. And basically what it does is it'll do the generalize. So it'll, like I said, it'll rip out the custom hardware stuff to it, shut it down, and have it ready for the UBI. So that is how you use Sysprep. When you're done, you do this. This is the command sysprep /generalize /shutdown/ubi, and you're done. Now, you can also sysprep a machine that you have not freshly installed Windows on. So if you've been using a machine for like 6 months and you'd like to get that as an image, I don't recommend that, especially if you've been using the Microsoft Store. If you really want to do that, you can run sysprep /audit. It'll boot the machine into audit mode. You can do any other changes on it, then you can generalize it and deploy it. So now, after the machine shuts down, you take your disk image, you clone it to a new machine, and then when you boot it up, it'll go into the UBI. And that is Sysprep in a nutshell. Any questions so far? Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to make sure I understand the process. Mm-hmm. Do you install Windows first, or do you just boot to the Windows ISO disk?
So
and hit the Shift F3.
Sysprep is once Windows is installed.
So once Windows is installed. So how are you getting? What does the Shift F3 do? At what point are you doing that?
So you do the Control Shift F3 when you're in the UBI to go into audit mode.
It kind of helps you skip.
It basically skips all of the Windows setup where it forces you to make an account.
Oh, so you've installed Windows.
Yeah, you install Windows,
and then
do
you
that.
Hit the Shift F3, and so because it boots, and so you don't have an eye. Got it. Okay.
Yep. And then you make your changes, and then you run the Sysprep tool, and it'll put it back to the UBI state.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
How do hardware and drivers work when you're booting into that audit mode?
So it'll use the default built-in Windows drivers unless you've configured other stuff. If you're going to be installing on like multiple types of hardware, you can actually put the image on one machine, install your drivers that you need. When you run Sysprep, it'll unload but not uninstall the drivers. So you could then take that image and put it to another machine, install the drivers on it, and so you could have an image that has like 4 different hardware configurations in one. I don't recommend that because then all of the other drivers are left over. They're not active, but they are sitting there. So it does take up some disk space. But you can do that with drivers. So when you run the generalize, basically it'll take whatever drivers are there, it'll unload them, but it'll keep the actual driver install files there. So if it sees that hardware when you deploy it, it'll use those drivers as it sets up.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's say you're trying to build this Sysprep image, and you're like, I have 12 different machines with different hardware configurations that I want to do. How are you going to install all the drivers for the thing and then Sysprep it? Like, if you don't have the hardware in the machine, you see what I'm getting at?
If the machine's hardware is something where the machine can boot up and run and get a network connection without having special drivers, don't bother with the drivers. Because once the machine loads, you'll run Windows Update. It'll automatically pull the drivers it needs if there's anything other than the default built-in ones, and you can run that way.
Okay, cool.
So it works like a normal Windows install after that?
Yeah, it's basically the same as a normal Windows install with any extra drivers or configurations that you've done.
But software, on the other hand, if you've got software that's going out to everybody, that's when it's really worth it.
Yes.
How does it deal with the licensing?
It'll prompt you to do an activation.
Okay, so
Because
normally in the install you give it a license key,
Yep.
and you don't see a license key in that out-of-box experience screen.
Yep.
So
it'll scream at you to activate and ask you for a key then.
Got it.
But if you're doing Sysprep, you might as well learn a little bit more about the whole Windows setup and deployment process. And so now's the second part of the class. So we've talked a little bit about Sysprep and how to use that. Now let's talk about answer files. If you're going to be installing an image, even after you've Sysprepped it, you can set up an answer file. So then it'll basically do an unattended Windows installation where you don't have to touch anything.
Oh, sweet.
So there's a few different ways to do it, but I will get this running so it can go in the background while I talk about stuff. So I have this unattended install demo ready, and the way that I have this set up is I just have the Windows ISO ready to go on it, and then I also have a thumb drive here, and the thumb drive has this file called auto-unattend.xml. If you start a machine with like a Windows boot disk in it, or if you have the Windows installer flashed onto a drive, you can put this auto-unattend.xml on that same drive, or you can have a different drive. You boot up the computer. When Windows Setup first loads, it'll look for this file at the root of all the drives that are mounted to it. If it finds it, it'll use this file and then actually follow what you've configured in that to do a setup. So you saw when I started the class how Windows came up for the setup, and I had to hit next. I had to choose where I want the drive installed. It asked me for a product key, but I skipped it, and I had to do all of that. And then after that, I have to do the UBI if you do any after you do the audit mode stuff. So with this having an autounattend.xml file on it, when Windows comes up here, it won't actually prompt me to do anything at all.
No way.
Once it loads, it'll automatically start the install, pulling everything from this answer file that I've created. So if you're deploying to a bunch of machines and you want to skip the UBI altogether after you've set up your image with Sysprep to have the applications you want, this is a really easy way to do it. It boots up, I haven't touched anything, and it's already installing Windows. When this is done installing Windows, it'll reboot, it'll skip the UBI, go straight to the logon screen, and have the user account that I've set up ready to go. It still has to create the user profile once I log into that machine, but that's just the way that Windows works. So while that runs, let's talk a little bit about answer files. So when you install Windows, there's lots of different states in Windows that have different configurations that you can apply to it. So writing answer files is how you make your deployment stronger or faster, and then the answers, depending on where you put them in the answer file and what configuration you're doing, puts it in one of these different configuration passes. And there is a link here, and this site is really where you should go if you want to learn anything about Sysprep, audit mode, any of your answer file configuration. Everything is here. It's in the Windows hardware developer documentation. So if you go into the desktop manufacturing section there, it'll talk about how to boot and install Windows. It'll tell you all the different ways you can do it. It tells you how the Windows installation process works. It has multiple sections in here about how to automate it. There's different ways that you can create a Windows image as well. This is way deeper than what we're going to go tonight, but it'll go and talk about those. It has a small section in here that talks about answer files. And then it talks about how to modify an image, capture them, deploy. It gives you different things on how you can optimize images. So this website is really the best place to go if you're looking at learning more about answer files or really any Windows deployment stuff.
Nice. Just a quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
So I've seen that all of the stuff that you've linked is specific to Windows 10. Have you had any issues
Windows
with
11 is very similar.
Very similar.
And in fact,
Okay.
all of the stuff that I've linked, you can go here and you can choose Windows 11. Or at the top here, you just change that to Windows 11 at the end, and it'll pull up the Windows 11 specific stuff.
Perfect.
Also, it's retroactive back to previous versions as well.
Most stuff is.
Yeah.
So there's all of the answer files there. Let's see, that's still running. So when you do all the answer files, there are a ton of settings. So here's another one. This is in there as well.
Can you make the text a bit bigger?
Yeah, I can make the text bigger here.
And
I'm not going to actually go through all of this because it's ridiculous. But here are all of the different settings that you can have Windows automatically do on install through an answer file. So you can do desktop things, you can set up media player, you can set up network load balancing.
You could probably set up a KMS server that it's supposed to connect to, right? For the
Maybe.
license key?
I haven't dug into
Control F,
advanced
KMS?
answer files very much. You can do the out-of-the-box things. You can
give us a
do...
Control F and KMS? See if we
Yeah,
can-
sure.
Nope.
Nope.
No, it's in there somewhere, I bet. There's got
Yeah.
I think I've seen somebody do that.
So there's a ton of things in here that you can set up on an answer file. Like, it's insane the amount of stuff that you can put in an answer file. And then they have a list of the things that they've deprecated. And this here is what I'm specifically looking at for Windows 10. If you go into Windows 11, they have the changed answer files there as well. but everything's really just here in the components. So you can go in here, you can look at something specifically and see all of the different settings that you can apply. If you want to, you can go in and look at a specific part of it, and it'll give you all of the things to do in the answer file. Now, of course, this is ridiculous trying to do all of this by hand, clicking around and looking at all the documentation.
No way.
So that is about done there. So since that's ridiculous in the documentation, you can generate an answer file. There's a few tools that you can do it with. So if you want to do the really complicated one with all of those things that are on the website there, you'll use this the Windows System Image Manager. This is more of if you're doing stuff with Windows Deployment Services and DISM. You'll have to have what's called a WIM image of the file that you've created, and then you load it into SIM. You can tell it to create an answer file and then go through and build it all that way.
They're just like checkboxes or something, right?
Yeah, it's checkboxes and a lot of configuration things that you type in or choose drop-downs. Now, that is going into the really advanced stuff that I'm not teaching tonight or going through. So for all of our sakes, we have this other one, which is windowsafg.com. And when you launch that, it comes here. It's the Windows answer file generator. This is an online tool. You set the stuff up online, and then once you have it set up the way that you want, this only has basic things, but you can download that autoattend.xml, throw it on a thumb drive, and you're good to go. And that's actually what I've got running right here for this install, is just one that I generated from the website. So answer files, by the way, are used in a lot more than just a Windows installation for the operating system. You can use them also for if you're doing Windows servers. You can have the setup automated that way. And another thing that a lot of people use the answer files for is Microsoft Office. So you can set up an answer file for Microsoft Office that'll automatically license it. It'll configure like the user's name and initials for it, and any other types of settings you want to set up. All of that can be done through answer files.
Is that through the Office deployment tool?
If you want to run the Office deployment tool, you can, or you can just generate the answer file through here.
Oh, cool.
So on here they have an answer file generator that goes all the way from Windows XP all the way up to Windows 10 or Windows 11. From server, all the way from Windows Home or Small Business Server 2000, Small Business Server 2008, Home Server 2011, all the way up to our more modern 2019. Office 2010, 2013, 2016. There's some different services you can do as well, and then of course they have a tutorial here. So what I did when I created the answer file for this machine that so far I haven't touched anything at all, and it's still doing all of the install, is I go to the desktop, and then this is a Windows 10 MBR install. And so you can put in a location, you can put in any notes you want. It has a product key in here. I'm assuming it's like a volume license key that floats around. But you can put in your product key there for your organization. And then you can tell it whether or not you accept the EULA. If you accept it, then you don't have to hit accept because it's built into here. You can skip automatic activation. You can skip the licensing rearm. You can choose the setup languages. You can even name the specific computer. You can give the organization name on it. Do all your regional settings. If you want to do the out-of-the-box experience or skip that altogether. It has some other settings in here too, like when you open the up control panel, how it'll look by default. It has partitionings. I should make this bigger, I'm sorry. It has partitioning settings, so you can tell it just nuke the disk, install it to the first hard drive on there. How do you want it partitioned? You can have a user account created automatically in here as well. And if you want multiple users, you can actually, you have to manually edit it. This web tool doesn't let you do it, but you can copy and paste that and change the other things, and it'll make 5 or 6 user accounts if you want. And with this, when you go through it and do it, it automatically generates the file here. So this is what it looks like. It's just an XML file. And then you can either do a highlight, copy and paste into a file and save it as such, or if you're just going to do it straight from the website here, you hit download file.
That's cool.
And so over here, that is still getting set up. I still haven't even clicked a single button in this machine.
It makes me happy.
Yeah, answer files are really cool.
I hate installing Windows.
Yes.
Going back a bit, but in audit mode, if you install something that has, a non-Windows tool that has to talk to a licensing server, say SolidWorks or some kind of endpoint protection, is that just going, if it's installed on a different machine, different MAC address, is it just going to shit the bed, or?
It's probably gonna, it'll go into whatever mode that it would go into if it thinks that the hardware's changed.
Okay.
Because in this case with it, when you run the Sysprep, it'll generalize it. It'll rip out like the unique identifier that the machine has. So when you push it to another one, it'll have a new unique identifier.
Okay.
If you're using SolidWorks specifically, because you brought that up, you may already have a KMS set up for it, and you could feed its license file to it, so it would come up and not care that it's on a new machine. Just pull its own license.
Yeah, it'll treat it basically as if you've ripped out the mother, like if you had a Windows install, you pull out the motherboard and processor and RAM, install a new motherboard, processor, RAM, Microsoft thinks it's a new machine, and if that software follows that same thing, then it'll be that same
some
way.
licenses will transfer over.
Potentially.
I did have an issue with my antivirus, with it thinking it was the same machine, even though it was a different machine.
Oh, so exactly the opposite problem.
But that's
sometimes that's an
antivirus.
issue with your generalize button.
Yes,
Generalize
probably, and
pulls it, so it
probably
sees it as a new
didn't
machine.
generalize.
Yeah, if you don't click that generalize button, it will just put it back over to the UBI, but it won't strip out all the machine-specific stuff. But if you're deploying this to multiple machines, it's best to generalize it so your environment's unique and set up as it should be by best practices. So I'm going to do my first click here. I have the account that I had set up in the answer file, so now I just need to log in. And now this has to go through and create the profile. But this is, I've installed Windows on a VirtualBox machine, and I never even clicked anything. So this is where answer files are really cool. So Sysprep is just a tiny little part of Windows imaging deployment, but an answer file is what lets you automate a lot of the other stuff.
For answer file, I could do something like setting up a static IP if I use the other tool that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Or if you do it manually, you can set IPs and answer files, I believe. So if you want to use answer files when you're installing from scratch, you can actually streamline the answer file into the Windows image if you're using Windows deployment services. But that's not something that we're doing tonight. But for this class, I did the easy way, where I just chucked it on a thumb drive, and it went. There's a link right here as well that I've put in here, which is how to automate Windows setup, and this talks about how to use the thumb drive. And when you do an answer file, these here, if you want to bypass just the Windows setup portion of it, this documentation here says all of the things you actually have to set if you want to skip that full setup thing at the beginning. So this is the bare minimum of what you need. And I will have this presentation online for anyone to download and click on those links later. So that's how you do answer files from scratch, and that's the notes and resources is just all of the stuff on this Microsoft page. And so over here, this is still getting signed in, but that's been installed without me lifting a button or lifting a finger. Yes?
So you said with DISM, we can put our answer file into the actual ISO image for Windows?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool. But if we, does DISM cost money?
Nope.
No.
DISM is free. It's DISM, portions of DISM is actually built into every single machine. It's how Windows does a lot of its internal servicing things. So if you have a broken Windows install, you actually use DISM to repair it. So there's the system file checker, which will do some stuff, but DISM will actually go through, and if you give it an image file, it'll look at the image file and it'll use that image file to repair Windows.
God, okay.
You can also use it to capture the images. It does a lot of stuff. It's built in.
Does it? Is it just the core window, core aspects of Windows that it's going to use that image file for, or if it fired and just borked Office install, is it going to try and fix that as well?
I don't know if DISM is used to service Office.
Okay.
I thankfully have not ever had to go that far down the Office troubleshooting rabbit hole. So yeah, this is the image that I made with that answer file online. It's done.
Sweet.
Or not the image, but the install. So I didn't have to click anything, and with the unattended answer file there, I have a full install of Windows done.
And now that we're here, we can touch the Windows Store.
Yes. Yeah. So
You
that.
can run a decrapify PowerShell script.
Yeah, you can do the decrapify script. If you would have created the image file through DISM, that you could have already decrapified it, or in the answer file itself, you can even in the answer file you can tell it run these scripts, run these commands, and so you could have it run that decrapify script as part of the answer file as it runs. And they have on here, they actually have a bunch of different tutorials that list how to create answer files. There's one part of the tutorial here where it's one of the links I have on that the presentation where I actually walk you through. If you want to run a script, here's how you create this script, here's where you put it, and here's how the answer file pulls it.
During the answer file setup, can it have, can I curl something?
Curl is not built into Windows by default.
Or, is there a way for me to actually grab a resource to the network?
PowerShell will do it.
Get
So-
web request. or-
So,
Yeah.
so during the setup process, I can have a PowerShell script inside of my answer file.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have all sorts of scripts in the answer file. So I don't know if I have... So yeah, if you go here, it actually will talk about, with Sysprep, it'll give you limitations on it, things that are not supported. But in one of these...
Let's say I want everyone to have my collection of cat photos. It reaches out to the NAS, grabs my cat photos, throws it on
Yeah.
during installation.
You can do that on first login.
There's like a few aliases.
Yeah.
and you can-
As part of the image, so whenever it's image, the first login, it pulls those as a script.
Yep.
Yeah, but so if this is not something that's got a static collection of cat
Correct.
files, it's for
Yes.
yeah.
But I'm saying you'd pull it at first login, it'd run that script at that point.
Okay.
So it'd be brand new the day they logged in, same
Yep.
idea.
Oh, day they logged in versus
Yes.
day it was installed.
You might have
Okay,
mentioned
yes.
this and I missed that, but why does the Microsoft Store cause all hell to break loose?
That's Microsoft.
Let me look at the wording that
easy
Microsoft
answer.
gave us.
It's the only one I have right now.
So this is what Microsoft says. Installing a new Microsoft Store apps or updating your existing apps before generalizing a Windows image will cause Sysprep to fail.
Informative.
They might have a little more.
So what that really means is the Sysprep team at Microsoft doesn't talk to the App Store team at all.
You got it.
100%.
We have an app store?
Or is it because
see.
they're tracking the user?
Yes.
It might be tied to the user account.
100%. That is true.
Or it's that way, you know?
Is there a way to
It is tied to the
remove or
user account.
disable the Microsoft Store?
That's part of your decrapify.
You can. Yeah, as part of the Apex provisioning PowerShell things, you can deprovision the Microsoft Store from an account. Let's see. I had. It was somewhere here. I pulled that exact quote from here somewhere.
Are you?
Later.
Right there.
Yeah, so it requires all apps are provisioned for all users. If you update an app from the Microsoft Store, the app becomes tied to the logged in user account. And so they say instead of using the Microsoft Store to update them, you sideload your line of business apps, you provision them, or you just tell the end user to do it themselves.
If I,
So I've run into this issue at my work where I went through and tried to update some things because there's unfortunately some things that have vulnerabilities in them, but they're updated from the App Store only. So I tried to roll those into the image and our deployments quit working. So that's something that I ended up having to, instead of using the App Store to do it, I had to do the whole side loading in.
Can you run through some of that stuff through group policy or something probably?
Yeah, you can. Where I work, our entire environment is virtualized, and we use VMware Horizon. So instead of using the Sysprep and the Windows answer file, we use VMware's Quick Prep and their profile, basically, to deploy desktops. But it's similar.
Yeah, with that, it's only like 5 clicks or something, right, to create a new virtual image or something?
I can, for the image, we do all the setup and then we just save it as a template. So if we need a new virtual machine, we just go into Horizon and we say, I need another 3 desktops. It'll automatically spin them up, provision them, join them to the domain, do everything else we need.
So,
Yes?
am I interpreting this wrong, or if during audit mode I created another user, would that cause a similar issue to what you're getting with the App Store?
No, you can create users in audit mode and they'll stick.
Okay.
It could be as well, because I didn't generalize correctly. I created one, like disabled the built-in administrator, create an IT user, and then I created the password, but then once the image did boot, it wanted me to reset the password. So it's like if you skip the password creation when you make the user, or maybe generalize correctly.
I'm not sure about that. I haven't dug super deep into making users because most of my stuff is domain joined, and so I just have group policy do whatever accounts I need done.
Depending on when you were working, for a short time, creating new users through group policy would auto check the user must reset password on entry.
Oh, okay.
I would think it was shortly after build 2004. It was like build, yeah.
Probably 20H1 or something.
Another use that I had for it in the past was we had training computers that I had to ship around the country in big Pelican boxes. And because they were going to customers and they were using their own files there, and we were the software provider, they had to be cleaned between each one, and they were dissimilar enough that I couldn't just make an image for all of them. I would do the same thing, and in that case I did have a training user account, which was separate from the admin account, and I didn't have issues with passwords coming up, so
Okay.
I can say that I know that it can work.
Okay. Yes?
So with answers files, is it possible to make it where it boots to the OBE but does not make a user?
Yes.
I believe so. There's a lot of different things in here to choose from. Yeah, you can go in here and you can choose if you want to create or skip the user UBI. I'm not sure of the details behind this. There's so much documentation to dig through, but it'll be in that documentation.
Our manufacturer, so often during the OBE you'll run into register with Dell, register with
All of that's
Lenovo.
done with the answer files.
Okay.
And then at what point are you actually grabbing the image? So you install Windows, you either go into audit mode, whatever, put in all your updates, all your software, and then run Sysprep
Yes.
and generalize.
Yep.
And then once it's done, you can tell it to reboot or shut down.
Yep. And I usually shut it down and then I pull the
And
image.
then pull it. Okay.
Yep. If you tell it to reboot, it'll reboot into the UBI. So you can shut it down and then pull the image, but it's a little cleaner to just tell it to shut down.
That's probably also the point that I messed up.
So yeah, the command that you'll usually run is, let's see. You want to generalize, UBI, shut down. And so you do those 3 things together. Sysprep takes 30 seconds to a minute to run, and then it'll shut the machine down.
Well, I'm sharing other places I've used it. I've used it out in the cloud as well. So I'll set up a machine how I want it, then I'll run my Sysprep on it, generalize it, shut it down. That way I can spin up as many images as I want, and each time it comes up as if it's a new machine. And it doesn't see it as the same machine 12 times.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments about tonight? It's a very, very brief overview of the rabbit holes you can get into doing Windows image deployment.
So that product key that it has in AFG,
Uh-huh.
like when you first get it, put it on, does that pretty much just when you're booting off a fresh copy of Windows and it's asking for a product key, it just is inputting that in place?
Yeah, you can go through here and put whatever product key in that you want.
Okay.
So if your organization has one, or if you have a product key that you want in there, you just change that here.
What are product keys these days with Windows 10 and 11? Because, you can't just strip a product key out and have that be a license anymore. It has to.
You can, sometimes.
Yeah, like, why the sometimes?
It
Yeah.
depends on what type of product key it is, whether it's like a retail product key or an OEM product key.
Yeah. And OEM product keys, as far as I know, are no longer actually product key. You can pull one out, but it
Sometimes
doesn't
it'll
allow you
work.
to install it.
I'm not sure how that works. Microsoft licensing is such a nightmare
I have a
that
question.
experts don't know anything.
Like
I don't know if it
fail,
works,
and then
but like I
all
have a
fails
product
at
key from the time when
time period will
you
work.
had pirated Windows
Mhm.
and they were just giving you the product key. What, do you know what kind of key that is?
That was probably KMS.
Okay.
Microsoft, with a lot of those keys that actually started floating around, they ended up disabling them later on. So if you had a newer version, it would see, oh, that key's not allowed anymore.
Interesting.
But yeah, Microsoft licensing is an absolute nightmare. I do not recommend it. And even if you hire an expert to come in and help you with Microsoft licensing, sometimes they'll get it wrong because it's that
And
bad.
they changed everything so often.
Yes.
You
It's
still need CALs?
Yep.
yeah.
You do need CALs for some things still, yes.
How do you even audit that?
KMS server.
Yeah.
You have to do it with a KMS server.
Or you do the spreadsheet that the Microsoft salesman sends to you saying, hey, we'd like you to do a voluntary audit.
No, that's
What happens if you're like, no?
You can ignore it. They'll sometimes go away, other times they'll send an official Microsoft letter. But usually that's only for businesses that actually have KMS running. It's like in the terms of that use, you submit to audits when Microsoft wants to audit you. It's awful.
Well, you can get Windows 10 licenses as part of M365 now.
Yep.
It's a part of it.
Well, and as far as I can tell, you can also get something that's like a cow as well. Yeah. or-
There's so much of a mess with licensing.
And yeah, is it user? Is it based on how many cores you have?
Yeah, I was told that my E5 licenses gave me cows, which,
I don't know.
yeah.
I am nowhere near an expert with Microsoft licensing other than to know I hate it. So, yeah, that's the class, that's the demo. If anyone else doesn't have questions, thanks for coming.